Welcome to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast, episode 96.
Welcome to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast with your host, Jack Mountain Bushcraft School founder and Master Main Guide, Tim Smith.
I'm your host, Tim Smith. I'm a registered Master Main Guide and have been a full-time outdoor instructor and guide since founding the Jack Mountain Bushcraft School in 1999. We help people become more skilled, more knowledgeable, more experienced, and more confident in the natural world through our bushcraft and guide training semester programs and multi-week canoe and snowshoe expeditions. You can check out the show notes to all of our podcasts at blog.jackmtn.com. If you're interested in learning more about our college-accredited and GI Bill-approved programs, visit the Jack Mountain Bushcraft School on the web at jackmtn.com. And check out our online network and digital learning academy at bushcraftschool.com. Hello and welcome back to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast, episode 96. Tim and Christopher here in the communications layer of our semi-subterranean northern Maine layer. Communications level of
there
our
you go.
layer, the level of the layer.
We should have that written down on a big board on the side so we can do the intro the same way every time.
Yeah, well, that would get boring. I like it a little different. It's authentic when everybody hears us screw it up over and over again.
What's the opposite of subterranean? Is that just a house?
Terranean?
Terranean? Terrarium?
It's like on the
Help, I'm stuck in a glass box! Anyway, good
Anyway.
morning. How are we doing?
Somebody's fully caffeinated. It is early October here. Our leaves are gone. Fall's basically over in Aroostook County.
Yeah.
The leaves are down. We had a big wind and rain event, a couple of big rain events, which is great considering the crazy drought we've been in.
Last night was I think probably one of the more intense thunderstorms I've ever been up here for, and it was great, though, because my dog got up at 2 a.m. and went outside of the tent and barked the thunder away, which was pretty impressive. She's a pretty little dog.
And just scared it right away.
She just scared it right away.
Yeah, the weatherman
came back into the tent, got in my bag all wet, and shivered for an hour and a half.
Well, there you go. That's the joys of dog ownership.
It's a trade-off.
Yeah.
She scared the thunder away, but now my sleeping bag's wet.
There you go. Yeah, I like having dogs. I just don't want to live with them all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. How do I trade that where I just get one for the good things?
Yeah. Good luck. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
So we are just finished week 7 of our 9-week fall Wilderness Bushcraft Semester course. Week 8, we will be in camp till the end of the week. End of the week, we take off and go get ready for our culminating event on the course, which is the solo. So we'll head to a remote lake that we've been going to for a few years. Really beautiful, top of the drainage. We'll spend a day there in camp with everybody, and then we will have everybody go out on solos for a few days, and then we come back to the field school, clean up, do any last-minute testing or whatever, and then we shake hands, and that's that.
Yeah. It's always the solos are always a great experience, but the coming back from them is always kind of a bittersweet thing because everybody's leaving and we're wrapping up the season.
Yeah, the hardest part maybe of running semester programs is you get to be great friends with people. You really get to know them on a deep level, and then right when everybody kind of gets it and all the systems are functioning smoothly and everybody's learned how to live in the forest, you shake hands and they go their own way.
Yep, and then we have to pay for therapy for all of them for the next week and a half.
Yeah, and then you start again on the next course and people don't know what they're doing again. So it's
a vicious cycle.
It is a vicious cycle. But we're excited I'm excited to get out into the field for the solos. I always bring, this time of year up here, we're getting nights are consistently below freezing. So last week we built a big dome structure, kind of like the old DC igloo we used to have here. We sort of rebuilt it and covered it with a white parachute and some plastic and threw a wood stove in it, and it looks like a giant marshmallow. Mm-hmm. So I'm affectionately dubbing it the marshmallow.
You should also explain the DC igloo, because I don't think people know what that means.
The DC igloo, because it's just a big dome structure, and we call it the DC igloo because DC stood for dance club.
Yep. Lots of dance parties going on in this little tent.
Yeah, we had a really fun group of people one semester, and I walked up there, and there was like people had their headlamps, and they were turning them off and on, and somebody had a little radio. I think it was just somebody's phone, but it looked like they were having a rave in this thing in the middle of the woods. And
It's a hard life up here.
Good laughs came out of that. But yeah, I'll be excited to bring out dusted off first time of the year canvas tent and wood stove. And the solo for the students is always a super powerful experience because they get to kind of live and put into practice all the things that they've learned. And it's not so much like a survival experience where, they're out kind of fighting nature and swimming in alligator-infested waters with their knife in their teeth. More, it's like a gentle reminder of how far you have come, and to where they're very comfortable in the natural world, as opposed to it feeling like they're an outsider. We like to say that it's kind of nature welcoming them back into the fold. So that's what they experience. What we experience, because we're stuck there, in a remote site, with really nothing to do, and we're exhausted because it's the end of the course.
Yeah.
So it's really just like, how many naps can you take during a day?
Well, the trick is timing the naps in between the 8,000 calories
And how much
at
can
every
you eat?
meal.
No, I mean, obviously we are there as a safety precaution. Like
Right.
if there's any medical issues, we don't leave. We always make sure that we're there. Everybody starts at the base camp, and then they go off to their individual locations, but they all know how to get back to the base camp in case there is a medical issue or really an issue of any sort.
Yeah.
So we're there, but it's not the most high energy couple of days of the year for us.
Every semester I come up here with a couple of new books to read over the semester, and I probably read like 4 pages for 8 weeks, and then that 9th week I read all 3 books in those 3 days that we're sitting there, because they're just sitting around trying to stave off the cheese and summer sausage coma it's inevitable really, but you're trying as hard as you can to push it back.
Yeah, so the instructor experience of solo is kind of hanging around a remote campsite, in and out of a wall tent,
And in and out of
sleep, and in and out of food comas. So we have that to look forward to. But
I always do kind of look forward to it. And then about a day and a half into it, my body's like, stop eating so much salt. You're going to die. You haven't moved enough to merit this.
Yeah. So we've got that coming up in a week. Excited for that. We've also got coming up in, 3 weeks from now? The Autumn Woodsman, and I think we're down to having just 2 spots available. People keep signing up for that, so if you're interested, get in touch. And that's what's coming down the pike.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting fall. Winter though might be a little.
Winter. We just had a big announcement this week that I've canceled our 2 big winter programs. I've canceled our Winter Woodsman and our Boreal Snowshoe Expedition for 2021. And the reason I'm doing that is because of the COVID. So during the spring, summer, and fall in camp here, social distancing is very easy. Everybody has their own tent and or shelter to go back to at night. And after we quarantine for the first 2 weeks of the semesters, we have people who are in camp, and we don't leave camp for the first 2 weeks, and then we're pretty sure that no one is a carrier, as sure as we could be in this day and age. In wintertime, winter programs are kind of built around small heated spaces, and that could be, an off-grid cabin like we've got a couple of. It could be a shelter like the Marshmallow like we just built, or it could be, in the case of the Boreal Snowshoe Expedition, it's small winter tents heated with wood stoves that we haul behind us on toboggans. So in none of those instances can we really guarantee that people will be able to social distance and stay away from other people.
We can guarantee the exact opposite.
Yeah,
They'll be
you can guarantee the exact
that they're going to sit in essentially a petri dish for two weeks. And
yeah.
It's just,
so because of the COVID for this year, I dragged my feet on making that decision, hoping there would be a vaccine or something. But in this day and age, who do you trust? They get all these conflicting media reports as to there's going to be a vaccine, there isn't going to be a vaccine. And at some point, you got to make up your mind. And that took place last week. So we're planning to be back with the, a really robust winter schedule for 2022. Hopefully by then we'll have the COVID under control. There'll be a vaccine. So expect to see a super robust schedule for 2022 of guided trips and winter courses, just because I'm going to miss doing it.
Yeah, we were just talking about this before, but I think the winter stuff is my favorite. It's my favorite time of the year to be out on the land up here, and it's, I completely understand the reasoning behind us not doing it, but it's a little sad.
Yeah, we may end up doing one like late winter trip, just a friend's trip or something. Mm-hmm. But as far as stuff that people could sign up for, it's not going to be this winter.
Yeah.
So as a result of that, longtime listeners know that we recently, the Smith family, sold our house in New Hampshire. Wife and kids are in Austin, Texas, where wife's family is from. So when we wrap up here, middle of November, I'm going to head down that way and spend a few months with the family and get to where my children could once again pick me out of a lineup of strangers. One of the dangers of kind of working.
I don't know, Tim. They might not recognize you once you're a snowbird.
Yeah, well,
because there's that weird bird costume that you got to show up in. Cause
right,
you big Canada goose.
I just hope I don't get shot.
They're not going to recognize you down there.
Yeah. So as of now, I'm planning on bringing a canoe with me, and one of our alumni and a real good friend of mine, Phil Salonik, lives in West Texas, and Phil has been dangling dangerous propaganda in front of me in the form of like a paddling map to the Rio Grande, and he sent me a DVD about the Rio Grande canoe trip. So there's a distinct possibility that could happen this winter, and I'm pretty excited about it. It's been a while since I've seen canoed any new rivers, and I have zero experience canoeing in the Southwest, so that would be amazing, and hopefully it pans out.
Yeah, it sounds like a fun time. I'm going to sit by the wood stove for as long as I can all winter and see how many spoons I can make in 25 minutes.
There you go.
That's my plan.
That's a good plan.
I don't even need the spoons. I'm just going to make them because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah. But we are definitely still planning on running the spring semester as scheduled. Again, that's going to start April 11th, which is still winter up here. That'll be a hard course physically, right? We'll be snowshoeing the first couple of weeks, and then the snow will melt, and then we'll be running rivers during high water sessions.
I can't wait for some high water.
So that'll be interesting. We've got a few signed up already. Those spots aren't going to last very long, but we're super excited about it, especially after this year, the year of the drought, right? It'll be so nice to get...
The year of the dragon.
The year of the dragon.
I did my brain finished that sentence, and I don't know.
It'll be nice to get out on the high water. We're planning on, for the Wilderness Guide Training Semester, our spring semester, we're planning on a length of the Aroostook, the St. John River, and an Allagash trip.
Yeah.
So, and maybe a few other little ones built in. So we've got that to look forward to.
Yeah, and that's a good segue for any, right? We're sort of the meat of this podcast is about differentiating the two semesters.
And just describing the different types of programs that we offer.
Yeah.
So if you ever look on our website, on our calendar, the master calendar, one of the columns is the type of program. And we've got our professional training programs, our field school programs, and guided trips. And we just wanted to riff on what those mean. So like the spring semester, the fall semester, the Boreal Snowshoe Expedition, those are all professional training programs. And the way that we differentiate those, they're big, they're long, they're expensive, they're hard to do. And as for them being professional training programs, we have a lot of accountability built in for the students. So, probably every couple of years we get somebody who comes on a semester and really isn't interested in becoming a professional guide or bushcraft instructor, and they maybe don't want to do all of the background work. But these courses are characterized by, we have a big Google Google Classroom, and there's lots of academic work to be done. There are lots of benchmarks with regards to crafts and skills and doing them a certain number of times. There's a big testing component near the end of the course. So it's not just sort of a show up in the woods and hang around and, talk about knives and, occasionally cook something over the fire. It's a very regimented, documentation heavy, academic heavy experience. And for good reason, because we're trying to train the next generation of professionals.
Yeah, and I think, the trips where you sit around the fire and talk about knives and stuff, those are fun. But if you're coming up here for an extended period of time, the accountability is having your own personal accountability to the course is what's going to make you get as much out of it as you can. If you come up and you just kind of want to hang out for 9 weeks, you're going to have, you're kind of handicapping yourself to the experience, I think. But if you come up here with the intention of getting as much done as you can, maybe even if you are, maybe not going for the journeyman, but you're still around, maybe just a day where we do one of these projects sends you down a rabbit hole of interest that changes, the thing you want to do for the rest of your life, right? So if you're, maybe you're up here and you're not super into canoeing, but you are, you're really fascinated by the way that we go about, making mokotagans, and you after that have a viewpoint into make like really primitive blacksmithing. And so I think that the accountability of that means that, I guess what I'm getting at here is, for those courses, plan on being around a lot and plan on kind of squeezing as much out of that wet washcloth as you can.
So yeah, you mentioned the journeyman, which is our in-house certification, and the fall semester is really focused on getting people to where they can check all the boxes for the journeyman certification that we offer.
Right.
So it's not an easy thing to get. I don't know, what do we have, like 30% roughly of students in the past have achieved that. And the journeyman isn't anything extraneous to the course. It's just making sure that people get the level of knowledge and experience with each aspect of the course in order to achieve the journeyman. So it's not something that, we do the course all day and then when we quit for the day, people jump in and do journeyman stuff. Everything on the course is focused on the journeyman cert. But you have to be working hard in order to achieve all those goals and all those things. And that's working hard from a academic standpoint, all the background research that we have people do, all the workbooks and the Google Classroom, all those things.
Yeah, we've said it a few times on this. I think we had a whole podcast around it, but the idea that the advanced skills are the basics mastered. And the idea behind the journeyman is that everybody on the course sees the basics of everything. And then the people that end up getting the journeyman are the people that put in that first couple of steps of turning that little basic understanding into mastery. And it doesn't mean that when they leave, they are masters of any of the thing, but they have a really solid base to work through. And that's kind of, those are the kind of people that we're looking for on these, to come on these courses, is because, the learning doesn't just happen because Tim and I stand up and talk and show everybody. The learning happens because people put in the work after hours or during class time to really wrap their head around it in a way where they can go on and advance with that further and further and further the more they do it.
I am on record of saying and believe firmly that the more that students are doing and the less that we're talking, the more students walk away with from a learning perspective. People like to lecture in our culture because it looks like education, but it's not really effective at getting people to master the material. I mean, that mastery happens when people are out playing with it, working with the stuff, not necessarily sitting back, writing and scribbling into a notebook or something while I'm making bad jokes or whatever. So, getting hands dirty, being busy and being engaged with projects is where the real learning happens. And that's how we've designed the journeyman for that, to maximize that.
Yeah, it's, we are just wrapped up so this past week was mostly about the people going for the journeyman doing their testing. And we did our bucksaw test, which is an exercise in carving and understanding how wood interacts with each other. The idea behind a buck saw is that it's a saw frame held together only by tension. So the way that it's carved affects whether or not it'll work. And I don't think nobody passed on the first go round. And
it's a timed thing where they have to go get their materials. Once they have their materials, then we start the clock, and they've got 35
minutes
to make something that's they've got to make it, and then we inspect it for the certain points that are pass or fail with regards to and then it has to actually perform. They have to saw through like a 7-inch round or something.
Yeah. And so the, the big takeaway from that with some of these people was like them saying, I've made 6 or 7 of these and I still don't really get it. And, often because of the sort of the modern world, they want an answer to why that didn't work. But I think kind of our philosophy up here is, maybe make 6 more before you test again. And then you'll really kind of understand the nuances of it. Not to say that we're not there to kind of give advice and stuff, but I think, 10 minutes of me or Tim talking through the nuances of what makes a buck saw frame held together function is not worth nearly as much as an hour of, spending time to look at the ones that you've made that worked and figure out what about them, what material selection affected it, how they were planed and all that other stuff. And so to me, it's just the people that are going to pass these tests and do really well on these courses for the professional training ones are the ones that have that kind of do it until the struggle stops being a struggle, essentially. And that's where the understanding comes from, I think.
Yeah. Sure.
The less we talk, right?
So those are the professional training courses. So if you're planning on coming up to a professional training course, just be advised that, professional training means it's a lot of work. And it's not just about the fun things and like the cool, sexy things and whatever. It's also kind of the gut through the harder things like the, academic background research. Expect to spend some late nights in the library, things of that nature. And if that doesn't sound like fun, then maybe
we should say there is a lot of fun that goes on during those. It's not a slog the whole time.
No, it's a lot of fun.
But
there's just a lot of work to go along with it. So if that is not something you're interested in, then just a general field school program like the Summer Woodsman, Autumn Woodsman programs like that, where it's not, it's the same course curriculum, but students aren't held to the same level of accountability. So if you're interested in, a fun week in the woods, learn some new skills, but there's not going to be somebody saying, you've got to continue doing background research till midnight or something like that, then look at those programs and they might be a much better fit for you.
Yeah, they're also good if you're not, maybe you've thought about coming up and taking a 9-week semester, but you're not really sure if it's, if you even, maybe this is just something that you're kind of interested in, but have no real experience with. Don't jump right to the 9-week one. Come and take a short one and see if you like the stuff.
Yeah, maybe you take the class and you hate it.
Yeah,
and
or us.
Like, yeah. Yeah.
Which is, yeah.
It only happens like with
85%?
Okay, 85% of people that come up here. But yeah, it's a really good point Christopher's making is if you're unsure that this is something you want to devote a lot of time and energy to, don't jump right into the longest program that we offer. That's not a great plan.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think because this industry has sort of, what is the term? Jumped the shark, where there's a lot of imagery of it and a lot of writing about it, and so people see it and think it sounds like a lot of fun, and then I would give it a test drive first before you. I'm not trying to turn anyone off of it, but I think that it's not as there's a lot more work than I think. Yeah, there's a lot of those social media stuff makes it look like.
Sweat.
Mud, bugs, and sweat.
There's a lot of that.
I like that.
It's not always, everybody wants to be Henry Thoreau living on Walden Pond.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to be swatting black flies and dealing with all the other rigmarole that comes with it.
10 episodes in a row we've mentioned black flies.
Yeah, well, they're coming again.
They're coming. They'll be here any day.
So those are just the general field school programs. And then we also offer guided trips where we get out onto the land and cover some ground. And those, again, we teach on those to the degree that it's needed, but it's not necessarily like a morning to night, okay, now we're going to do this, now we're going to do that. It's much more organic, and the teaching is defined by the trip itself.
Yeah.
Meaning if we're going to line canoes over a Long Lake Dam on the Allagash, then yeah, we'll have a lesson on lining bridles and lining. But if not, then maybe we don't.
Yeah, it's more about the experience overall than it is about people having sort of big teachable moments kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not like check the box because we've got to cover 8 million.
Yeah, and it's the like Tim said, the teachable moments come from the trip itself rather than a pre-existing kind of curriculum that we write up.
And this was the year, 2020 was the year that we...
Of the Dragon?
No. It's the year that we differentiated between the spring and the fall semester, whereas up until 2019, the spring semester and the fall semester were the same course, right? But 2020, this year, we've changed it pretty dramatically, and we're going to continue changing those through 2021 so that they are not the same course. The spring course, much more focused on canoeing and life on the trail. Whereas the fall course, much less about life on the trail, much more about life on the land, and less, minimal canoeing compared to the spring. Whereas in the spring, we're going to cover a few hundred miles in the boats. In the fall, especially this year, there just wasn't enough water to float the boats, and that's kind of been a trend. So we're just going to try to get away from canoeing in the fall and more land-based, traditional skills activities.
Yeah,
more projects, more things of that nature.
Yeah, and if you look at the sort of the traditional way people lived up here, that was kind of the case, right? Is that in the fall there's so much food around and so much to do with it to process it and all that kind of thing, and in the spring the big sort of resources that there's a lot of moving water and you can make use of it. So it has a lot to do with that, and not just us kind of differentiating for the sake of differentiating.
So those two programs are pretty significantly different. So if you're thinking of coming up to one, be aware that they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
And I guess lastly, we're looking at, I just recently rearranged the schedule for next summer because I'm looking at getting the Wilderness Canoe Expedition Semester, the 4-week canoe program that we've run for, 20 years or whatever. We haven't run it for 2 years. And we're looking to get that back, but it's going to be different than it has been in the past in that it's going to be very specifically focused on college students. So it won't be open to just anybody. So we're going to really focus on offering that for college students, 2 weeks at the field school, 2 weeks on the Allagash with a huge emphasis on history and natural history. So we're going to learn, as many plant species as we can. Definitely focus on the ones that we use in some way, so edible, medicinal, things of that nature. We're also going to learn, about the history of the North Woods. We'll probably have required reading of Lou Dietz's book, The Allagash, that talks about all of the cool history there. So, we'll be running that one through the University of Maine's early college program. So if you are interested in a college program or a gap year program, that will probably be... We'll have an announcement on the website, play a blog post, and then we'll be revamping that page. So we can look for that one. And that'll be July of 2021 is what we're looking at for that. So last thing I wanted to talk about is there are a lot of crappy books out there. And there are also some great books out there. And I recently came across a book by Tony Nestor called The Knife Only Survival Book, The Worst Case Scenario Skills for the Wilds. And Tony and I have been internet friends for close to 20 years. He writes a lot. He's a very prolific writer. He's written a lot of fantastic like how-to and bushcraft skills things. And he also writes a lot of awesome fiction. So one of his, I think 2 of his series I have on the Kindle, and I read it every year, and I'll probably read it again when we're out on solos. But man, what a great piece of kit a Kindle is, like a dedicated Kindle, not a Kindle app. If you're going to do a lot of tripping, you're stuck in a tent somewhere, people are out on solos, and you can bring like 800 books with you. Tony's Knife Only Survival book came out pretty recently, and I don't do it on the podcast or anything like that. I take my grandmother's advice about if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. But often in classes, I'll make fun of like some really crappy books and things like that. Just crappy, YouTube channels. I don't do it publicly. I'll do it in private. What I do like to do when something is really good, I like to let other people know about it. So if you're interested, if you're new to the whole bushcraft thing or survival thing, any of Tony's how-to books are fantastic. And again, this new one, the Knife Only Survival book, just came out. Highly, highly recommended. I love it. He's a very knowledgeable, very experienced guy. I've been at this for a number of years, and I get pretty excited when I read something new, and I learn something new at this point. So, and I definitely picked up a few tips from that book. So definitely check it out. We'll put a link to it in the show notes. But great guy, super knowledgeable, and great writer.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess that kind of wraps up our... Anything else to add today?
I was going to make a joke about doing a review for The Cat in the Hat, but I'm just going to skip it because I don't think it has a place here.
The Cat in the Hat?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have read this book, but I couldn't put it down. I mean, admittedly, it took me 5 minutes, but for those 5 minutes, I was locked.
It's about a cat with a hat.
It's about a cat with a hat and something about a pink ring in a bathtub. I didn't, it was a little above my, intelligence level. I didn't totally get the...
Dr. Seuss, right?
He was a doctor?
Yeah. So, no, interesting story about that guy. Interesting story, Dr. Seuss. Maybe you've heard this or not, but we had a guy here a number of years ago from Dartmouth College in New Hampshire, who you're going to start working with soon. So you should know this. So Dr. Seuss he was just, as an undergrad, he wrote for whatever the school paper was. And his parents always wanted him to be a doctor. But he, started publishing all those wacky books he wrote immediately upon graduation. So he took up the pen name Dr. Seuss to
appease his parents.
To appease his parents.
Pretty good.
So yeah,
I like that.
But apparently not a real medical doctor. You know what else I read? Dr. Dre, the rapper. He's not a medical doctor either.
Was it to appease his parents that he took on that?
I don't know.
We should look into that for the next podcast.
But I'm pretty sure he's never graduated from a reputable medical school.
He's got to at least, at this point, he's got to at least have an honorary.
I think he's a nurse.
Really?
No, I have no idea.
All right.
And we're getting punchy.
Yep, it's happening. It happens every time.
Thank you very much for spending this lovely Sunday morning with us. We're recording this on a Sunday morning. You know the drill, that if you enjoyed this, please leave us a review, share it with somebody. We should do a big push for reviews. I'd like to get, we've got 50 or 40 something reviews. I'd like to get to 100. Just like I want to get to 100 podcasts. It'd be great to get 100 reviews.
Yeah.
I don't know how to make that happen.
Review us.
So thanks for listening. Have a great week, and we'll hit you back.
Read again. The Cat in the Hat.
Yeah, The Cat in the Hat. Thanks. Bye. You have been listening to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast. For more information on our professional wilderness guide training programs that are college accredited and GI Bill approved, visit us on the web at jackmtn.com.